And hello, everyone. This is Jeff Mack, Dark Lord. I am washing my cloaks today, so I fear you've got me in a t-shirt and this spectacular hat. Uh, Wait a minute. I couldn't find the spectacular hat, so instead, I appear to be wearing a collection of James Bond books. Well, that's weird. Oh, look at that. It's a hat. By Bard and Jester. All right. Since not a lot of eyes are on the broadcast just yet, I'm going to take 1 second to try to put one of the correct banners up. So I am Jeff Mack. I run evilexpo.com. I'm at Dark Lord Journal on Twitter and Facebook. Evil Expo is the world's largest convention for villain punks, villainy, and people who just plain enjoy fictional villains. Villain punk is an undefined genre that deals with using fictional villainy to poke fun at and sometimes just survive the ordinary weirdnesses of the everyday. I am doing a series where I take a very classic work, Peter's Evil Overlord list, and you can find that over at eviloverlord.com. I'm taking that work and I am discussing basic ways that I think that it is lying to you. And trust me, I think it's lying to you. Now, why would a villain go out of his way to tell you that a list intended for the benefit of villains is lying? Well, it's because I think that we need to create a generation of villains, older, newer, whatever, who are more interested in critical thought, in examining ideas, in taking apart ideas, but then seeing what works and putting ideas back together. We have a little too much of a modern tendency to deconstruct everything, and that might not be a good idea. When you go over-reductionist, you get simple ideas. So, for example, it can be argued that one of the great tropes of evil overlorddom, particularly in espionage books, is the idea of not shooting someone when you have the chance, even though that person is your enemy. This comes across really well in a lot of the James Bond movies, although admittedly I dislike a lot of the James Bond movies. But if you look at it in the original context of what's going on, and these aren't really spoilers, I'll just give little bits. Here in Thunderball, for example, at one point when the bad guy wants someone killed, he has one of his men walk into a bar, declare his love for a woman who works at the plant, and then shoot himself and his presumed rival, who happens to be the British agent. He then later attempts to kill James Bond before James Bond knows that this guy is on the other side with a rock slide. It takes quite a while to get up to the difficult, torturous, probably would have been simpler to shoot them ending, and by the time they do, there are a lot of psychological reasons and a lot of reasons why they should not have survived. I won't go through all his 13 books, but I've got a couple of them. There's a couple of interesting points in For Your Eyes Only. It's noted that an American, those tricky Americans, that while James Bond has trouble often shooting people without being able to look them in the eye, he can do it, but he doesn't prefer it. Here, there's a note from J. Edgar Hoover of not blessed memory. Never send a man where you can send a bullet. So even Mr. Fleming is aware of the idea and is aware that James Bond is a little bit of a romantic. We'll pass over what happens to Mr. Bond in Diamonds Are Forever for reasons. We'll get to Dr. No, though. James Bond is first confronted with a giant dragon-like machine, and the reason that he is captured and tortured is for information and knowledge, and yes, the villain in that story does decide to do a weird expanded torture kill thing, but also they only barely escape it. In fact, this is so ridiculous that even though it does spoil how they escape, I'm going to tell you, he stakes them out on a part of beach which is overrun by apparently very hungry crabs, but he did not know that the female companion, Honeychild Ryder, grew up with crabs, and so she just relaxes and they all get all comfortable and they don't actually eat her or Bond for reasons that are not sufficiently explained. But seriously, who imagines a person growing up among carnivorous crabs? that's not bad planning. That's just bad luck. Why do I have 2 copies of Diamonds and Forever and 2 copies of Live and Let Die? Live and Let Die, where psychological terror is a key part of the plan. You could look back to, it's right in my bookcase behind me, which is concealed by the shoji screen. You could look back to The Valley of Fear by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the James Bond book, or for that matter, The Hound of the Baskervilles, where they talk about fear being more powerful, more potent than just destruction, that sometimes it is worth putting in extra energy to get that fear reaction. Hello, Cassandra, Mr. Jordan. All right. Can you believe I actually put an entire bunch of other books here just in case we were going to go on making that point? I have, let's just say that I can keep making that point for quite some time, I promise you. So, one last note. Obviously, I am dealing with fantasy worlds. I personally, as the villainous ruler of an imaginary country working unknown magics, have no particular say, politically speaking, in guns. I'm simply talking about guns as they show up in our fiction. All right. So when we hear guns are not too good for my enemies, what's being suggested is if you have your enemy in a tight spot, or if you have the chance to kill your enemy, don't wait and put your enemy in some sort of complicated trap, but rather just trying to shoot off screen. Just shoot them, bang, bang, it's all done. And the theory is that superheroes, super secret agents, protagonists in general will often escape your trap or escape your whatever situation you're using to imprison them and get out and cause you harm. And you can just prevent all that with one big gunshot. Now, the thing is, that is possibly true. But some of that would just involve knowing the future. I mean, there are times when you actually do want to torture someone. I mean, if you're from the modern world, there are probably times when you want to torture someone multiple times a day, and you're not even under a contract with the 1950s KGB to extort information from people. There are times when you want to torture someone for information or extract information from them. There are times when you want to keep someone alive for a hostage exchange. There are times if you're dealing with, say, a mutant, someone with superpowers, someone with unique brain, depending on your technology and your interests, you might want to study that person. That might be more useful. You get a lot of use out of it. There's a lot that you can do. And the idea, I suppose, is try not to put your enemies in convoluted death traps. But is it really? Or is it more like, if you have an actual convoluted death trap, treat it, and this is a very, very vaguely off-color reference, treat it the same way you would treat porn in terms of a manual for erotic relations. Oh my goodness, we just dropped like 3 people on that one word. Okay, well, I guess for the remaining 2 people, I'll bring up my subject, which was going to be quite vanilla. That there are lots of things that happen in movies that are inspirational, but are not actually how you'd want to do things if you are, a criminal mastermind, for example. There's a whole lot of stuff like the ways spaceships battle. I've never been in a battling spaceship, but I'm pretty sure that the Lucasfilm is extremely exciting. The sounds of those lasers in space may not be entirely accurate. What's it like when you get caught up in a whirlwind and land a house on someone? I will never know, hopefully. There's nothing wrong with a death trap. I mean, there's nothing wrong necessarily with a death trap where you are standing outside of the only door to the death trap with a gun ready to shoot them personally if whoever is in your death trap gets out of your death trap. And if there's just so much plot contrivance, if you've got an author who's just going to make the heroes win, the heroes are going to win. Well, first off, there's a whole different psychological angle to the theory of being predestined to live in a world where the opposite team wins. But I'm just going to say that as a villain, you have agency. As a villain, you can change your world, you can change other people's worlds, you can change your life and the lives of others. You have agency. And that means if you put someone into a death trap that's really hard to escape from, they probably won't escape. And if you take preventive measures to make it less likely for them to escape, they extra special won't escape. That's just a thing. Shooting, in other words, is not too good for your enemies, no. There are times when shooting your enemies or, bonking your enemies on the head with a club, here it's a club, would be more effective. There are also times when it wouldn't be. I personally feel like I would need to be in a very sticky situation before I would want to go into court and say, this is why, Your Honor, I was forced to bonk someone with a club. I would really not want to do that. But no, as a general rule, a lot of the thoughts we have towards evil overlords basically work because someone is playing a percentage, someone is playing an angle that's really hard to find. If you are a monolith, if you are an existing thing, there is a Mario Puzo book where a casino owner begins all of his stories by saying, Gronefeld begins all of his stories by saying, every night, thousands of people lie awake thinking about how they can scam my casino. And it's true, people are always assaulting the casino with various attempts at scams, and he's always trying to foil them. Well, yes, same with being a villain. Hell, probably same with being a hero. They're going to keep assaulting your fortress with every idea they can bring to you. And so it's not so much that there's one weakness. It's not so much that there's a problem with the dilithium crystals or a place that isn't armored on your chest or something. Those things do matter. You should try to find them out. But there's always going to be some weakness. Nothing is invulnerable. No one is impotent. Whoa, omnipotent. Many people are impotent in multiple ways. There's no such thing as being omnipotent, omnibenevolent, and omnivillainous. I mean, there could be, but if there is, it's on a higher plane than what we're talking about. Steve asks, aren't we all playing a part in being an evil overlord? Even though there's one main person who's a mastermind with the master plans of evil. I mean, some of us are. I myself, of course, am an actual evil overlord. I run an actual evil magical kingdom. That kingdom may be no larger than this apartment, but gosh darn it. And Zachary Thayer says, what is your take on revealing your secret plan to the hero after you have them in a trap or confined? I wrote about this several years ago. And, it's really based on what motivates you psychologically. Psychological motivation matters. Heroes and villains can wake up in the morning feeling kind of depressed, and whether you have, say, studied Zen or whether you have had a hangover will affect how you respond to that. In general, I would say that if you're going to tell your hero your plan when you think the hero is helpless and is about to die because you get some kicks out of it, you should recognize that it's a guilty pleasure. It's like doing something that is at least a little bit bad for you but won't kill you. It's like, I don't know, if you don't drink often, you have that third drink, and it's going to make you slosh around a bit, make you a little drunk, but it's not going to make you crazy. You don't necessarily want to drive. It's a danger, it's a risk, and you might or might not get pleasure from it, It's like, would I eat pancakes and go off my particular keto diet on a special occasion? I might. I'll take a couple days for the keto to reassert, and that'll be weird, but it's how it works. In general, though, if you have to tell your plans to the hero that you've caught in a trap or confined, most especially if this hero has a reputation for getting caught and getting out of traps, just tell them the wrong plans. Tell them the wrong plans. Let the death trap start working in good conscience. Assume it would probably kill them. But if it doesn't kill them, they escape. They will go out to foil that plan over there, and you're in the middle of doing this plan over here. So, we're near the 15-minute mark. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, threats of untimely demise? You can check out my books over at this here Amazon link. You can check out Evil Expo, assuming I can find the banner right here. You can find my writing at Jeff Mack Writes, but that's about all. Keep an eye out. Please really do like, share, and subscribe. I'll be doing more of these. If you have more you want to say, contact me in the comments or hit me up on Twitter at Darklord Journal. Stay villainous, and I will promise not to eat your sun or your moon or even any of those tempting metal satellites that are now orbiting all around unless I really, really feel like it. And remember, a good death trap is a trap that makes the character of Death from Supernatural want to appear in it. So make sure you've got plenty of bar snacks, because apparently that is canonically what he eats. What do I know? I'm just a Dark Lord. Stay villainous, everyone. Whoops, that did not end the broadcast. Let me try that again. Stay villainous, everyone.